In the shadowy depths of Greek mythology lies the tale of Hades and Persephone, a love story unlike any other. A union forged in darkness, desire, and divine manipulation. This is not the tale of a simple romance. Rather, it is a narrative steeped in abduction, transformation, and a delicate balance between life and death. At its core, the story of Hades and Persephone reflects the eternal struggle between light and darkness, life and death, and the inevitable cycles that govern the natural world. Hades, the god of the underworld, ruled over the land of the dead, a kingdom filled with shadows and souls of the departed. Despite his immense power, Hades was isolated, overseeing a realm that was feared and avoided by mortals and gods alike. While Zeus, Poseidon, and the other Olympians lived in the vibrant world above, Hades remained alone, his kingdom devoid of love or warmth. Persephone, on the other hand, was the radiant daughter of Demeter, the goddess of harvest and fertility. She embodied the beauty and vitality of spring, bringing life to the earth wherever she walked. Her laughter filled the air, and flowers bloomed at her feet, a stark contrast to the bleakness of Hades' world. She lived a peaceful, carefree existence among the meadows surrounded by nature's bounty. However, Hades' gaze soon fell upon the young Persephone. One day, as she frolicked in the fields with her companions, picking flowers under the warm sun, Hades emerged from the depths of the earth. The ground beneath her feet split open, and from the chasm, Hades rode out in his chariot, dark and imposing. Without warning, he snatched Persephone and dragged her down into the underworld. The abduction of Persephone was not an act of passion alone. It was an arrangement made with Zeus, Persephone's father and the king of the gods. Zeus had promised Persephone to Hades without consulting Demeter or Persephone herself. While Zeus saw the match as a natural alignment of power, after all, Persephone would become queen of the underworld, he underestimated the devastating impact this would have on the world above. Demeter, upon discovering her daughter's disappearance, was consumed by grief. She searched the earth tirelessly, her cries echoing through the heavens. In her sorrow, Demeter neglected her divine duties. The fields withered, crops failed, and the world was plunged into famine. Mortals prayed for relief, but none came. As the goddess of the harvest, Demeter's anguish translated into widespread destruction. Without Persephone, life on earth began to die. Meanwhile, in the underworld, Persephone was trapped in a dark and desolate realm, far removed from the light of the world she once knew. Hades, who had fallen deeply in love with her, sought to make her his queen. The underworld, with its cold beauty and shadowy grandeur, was to be her new home. But Persephone resisted. She mourned the loss of her freedom, her mother, and the life she had left behind. The stark contrast between her vibrant former world and the gloom of the underworld left her feeling cold and desolate. Despite her initial resistance, Persephone's relationship with Hades began to change. While their union had started with an act of abduction, it evolved into something more complex. Hades, though feared and grim, treated Persephone with a certain reverence. Unlike the gods of Olympus, who were often cruel and deceitful, Hades was consistent and fair in his rule over the dead. He gave Persephone a throne beside his, granting her power as the queen of the underworld. Over time, Persephone came to appreciate the strength and authority she held in this role. She was no longer just a goddess of spring, she had become a queen of both life and death. However, Persephone's fate was sealed when Hades offered her a pomegranate. Unbeknownst to Persephone, the fruit was magical. Anyone who ate food from the underworld would be bound to it forever. In her hunger and desperation, Persephone ate 6 seeds from the pomegranate, unknowingly tying herself to Hades' realm. As Demeter's grief continued to plunge the earth into chaos, Zeus was finally forced to intervene. He sent Hermes, the messenger god, to retrieve Persephone from the underworld and return her to her mother. But when Hermes arrived, it was too late. Persephone's consumption of the pomegranate seeds had bound her to Hades. A compromise had to be made. Zeus decreed that Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother in the world of the living, and the other part in the underworld with Hades. Thus, the cycle of the seasons was born. When Persephone returned to the surface, her mother's joy caused the earth to bloom with life, marking the arrival of spring and summer. But when Persephone descended back into the underworld to be with Hades, Demeter's sorrow brought about the death of autumn and winter. The story of Hades and Persephone is not a simple love story. It is a tale of power, transformation, and the delicate balance between life and death. Persephone's journey from an innocent goddess of spring to the queen of the underworld mirrors the cycle of nature itself. It is a love born in darkness, where Persephone ultimately finds her own power in the world of shadows, balancing her roles as both the bringer of life and the ruler of death. Their relationship represents the complexity of love and power in Greek mythology, a union that transformed not only the two of them, but also the world around them. Hades and Persephone's dark love continues to resonate, a reminder of the eternal dance between light and shadow, love and loss, life and death.